Here's Brad, Blue Nile Farm. I want to do a real quick video on the John Deere 447 round baler. So if you haven't seen one before, or maybe you've heard of one, also equivalent to this is like the 335 baler, and this is part of the 7 series. It's the smallest of the little round balers that are made on the 7 series. But let me take you through this baler, show you what it's all about. I've had it for about 7-8 years, and stay tuned and we're going to go over it. I want to just give you guys a quick overview of the 447 John Deere baler. Just walking around so you can get kind of a good look at it. It's a good little baler. Like I said, I've had pretty good luck with it. I think the gathering wheels definitely make a difference. It has about a 48-inch mouth to it. Sheet metal on this one's really good. And it has nice wide ag balloon tires. It covers the field real well. This is a heavy baler. Don't get, you start hitting bumps, you're going to feel it, every bit of it. And now here's the belts. And they're diamond plated, so they actually grab the teeth pretty well. And since I've used this, my belts are very solid. I'm not even thinking about getting another set at all. And this is pretty much it. So it's a relatively easy machine to deal with. And it's definitely smaller, on the smaller side. I bought a Krone baler as a backup baler. It's also a silage baler as well. And it is a lot bigger than this one and heavier. But this is a very heavy unit for a little baler. And I would suggest, this is an ideal machine for somebody with a smaller tractor. 50 horse, it would work with that really well. So, and we're going to get into this and I'll show you a little bit more of the internal workings. So I'm down on my last first cut field that I need to bale. So I have it all raked out here and I'll kind of show you how this thing runs in this field. And I wanted to do this video earlier, but all year I seem like I've been under the gun and never had a chance to really make this video. But this John Deere 447 baler makes 4x4 bales. It's only a string tied baler. It does not do wet bales. You can get a wet kit for it if you want. When I bought this baler, it had the gathering wheels for it. But let me take you inside and show you the makeup of this. This is a 2-string round baler, and I like this baler when it comes down to the string and how it works, because the strings actually work together. They start at the top, or they start in the middle, they work down, and they work all the way up. And it's just a very simple baler to unstring. And so I really enjoy that. And I do a lot of rebaling my hay, and this is a baler that I enjoy to unravel. So it works out really well. So let me take you inside the door here and we'll show you both sides and what it actually contains. So when you look inside this baler, it's a very simplistic baler. You have your 2 areas for your strings. It's 2 chains sitting right here. One thing is this one chain, there's like a clamp plate that basically this chain rides on, and it'll actually wear. It's one of the wear pieces that you have to replace. I've done that once. But for the most part, cylinder here that opens up the door, but there's really not much to this. There's no oiler to it. You have to oil it manually. There's a few grease fittings, but for the most part, it's relatively very simple to work on, a very simple unit itself on this end. So let's go on the other side. I'll show you that. All right, so now that we're on the other side, we actually have 3 areas for string. Basically, there's no chains in this side. We just basically have a lift cylinder, a belt, some spring tension components, but there's really nothing here. And it's why I like this little baler. There's nothing to it. It's very, very simple. When you look at some of these other balers that are out there, there's just all kinds of gadgetries to it. And there's really not much to this at all. Really simple. As far as the back end goes, there's basically 2, you only need 1 pair of remotes to lift and close the door. Basically, you have the plug for your lights, you have a chain, and you have a really heavy PTO shaft. This is a pretty heavy stout unit at the tongue. It is pretty beefed up, but there's really not much to it. It's very, very, very simple. So as far as belts go, this is a belt baler, and it does make, like I said, 4x4 bales, and they're very, very tight. And I get yield about 11.75 square bales for every round bale that I make. And that I realized once I started doing the rebaling process. This baler does not eat wet hay at all. So if that hay is a little bit too wet, it will plug up on you. That's probably the one thing I do not like about this baler, is the fact that you can plug up pretty simply. But for the most part, if you don't make really huge rows and basically you're dealing with dry hay without a wet kit, this thing does a really good job. I've made over 6,000 round bales with this, and it's been flawless for the most part. I haven't had any major breakdowns at all. I broke a couple chains. We just rebuilt a lift cylinder that had to be was leaking this year. There really hasn't been any major problems anywhere else. So I really like this baler, and it's very, very quiet, and you'll see that here in a minute. But there's really not a whole bunch to it. As far as tractor goes and horsepower, I've used a 55 horse tractor to pull it. I'm now pulling it with my Kubota 70 horse, and I pulled it with a 100 horse tractor. So for the most part, it's a good baler for somebody that's working on the small side. And I really can't understate, if you're looking for a small farmer that wants to have a baler that'll work on a lower horsepower, this baler is a good baler to think about if you run into it. It's very simple and very easy. You know, one thing I was looking at when I was buying my baler, and I don't have a whole bunch of experience as far as different balers and shopping around for them, but especially round balers. But what I did find out is, and what I did like, is that with this ramp, you can stop the baler in the field and just lift the door, and it'll roll off, and it'll roll about 4 or 5 feet away from the baler so you can shut. You know, some balers you have to back up and then open the door and then pull forward. This one you don't have to back up at all, and that's a great thing as far as I'm concerned, because that just slows you down playing around with shifting and everything else. So this thing, like I say, stop, open the door, and it rolls right out. Can't go wrong with that. So the one thing I want to talk about with this baler, it does not have a monitor in the cab. So the monitor that you're going to be dealing with the most is these two boxes right here, which shows you the levelness of your bale. Whether you are, you know, too big on one side or the other, you want to make sure they're even. And that's that. This, I do have an alarm in the cab, but it doesn't always work. So this gauges the size of your bale. So when this little pointer starts rolling down here and it gets to about here, then this when you need to initiate your string. And when you initiate your string, you'll actually see this lever start rolling across, and when it gets to the halfway part, that the baler it'll actually start to catch, and just basically take a couple seconds and work your way over to this side. Do not go past that line, and then you're going to have to feed it back all the way to this other side. And what I do is when I get close to coming back, I'll wait about 5 seconds at the end, and then I will let it go all the way forward, and that's when the string's cut, and then I'll have to open the door and shut the chute. If you go into the red, too far in the red, you basically can make an oversized bale and cause yourself a lot of problems. So unfortunately, because I don't have a monitor, and if my alarm's not working correctly, which generally it's infrequent at this point, I'm going to try to get that fixed. You definitely have to pay attention, because you do not want to go into the red. So that's all I can tell you. I don't know what will happen if I oversize one. I really don't want to find out. So, and I don't want to break any of my belts. So the best thing I can tell you to do is pay attention to what you're doing. You cannot daydream, or you're going to have big problems with this baler. But I think that's with most balers. So with that said, let's go out and start baling some hay. Once I'm on the cab, I'll show you what the actual control box looks like. So everything's already hooked up as far as the electronics go, as far as the cab. So the only thing we can do is set our gauge wheels. And the easiest thing I could do is I just go down about, for at least this one, I just try to get about 6 links on my chain. And then my gathering wheels will be active. And we'll do the same on the other side. So like I said, once the gauge wheels are set, the only thing we need to do last is to basically drop and there's a crank on this side, so we can just drop this down, so our gathering tines will be set properly. Now, like I tell everybody, 4 inches, so I don't have to go all the way down to the ground and really beat up my tines. So I just want to make sure that I'm probably 2 inches off the ground, and I'll be in good shape. You know, this field's rough like every other field I go into, and I got a couple of huge groundhog holes that I'm not too excited about. So hopefully we'll miss some of those. Let me show you the rows real fast before we get started. so you can kind of see what I'm working with and how big a row I make, because I think I see a lot of guys making huge rows and they got huge balers. This is a smaller baler, and so I would definitely I'm not going to make too big of a row, but it's going to be definitely bigger than you would make if you were using a square baler. So I see some guys in videos and they're going like major miles an hour. So for me, something like this is a good feed for this baler. It's not too big. It's probably like almost 1.5 to 2 rows together. This field is not really thick, but it's a good amount for me to feed through and to not plug up. It's not worth plugging up, because if you do plug up, you're going to be down for 20 minutes to almost 45 minutes trying to undo it, and I really don't want to plug up at all. So the biggest thing is just to basically get in here, run smoothly, and get it done. You're not going to travel that fast also in this baler. I run about 1900 to 2000 RPMs at most, and so I'm under the 540, and also you're only going to go about 4.5 miles per hour, so you're not going to be speeding through the process. And with that said, it's just a smooth and steady opportunity to bale. I don't have a lot of experience with bigger balers, but I see guys flying, or it seems like they're flying through a field. But this thing does a good job eating, and it makes a good tight bale, and I think that's more important to me anyway. So now let's go bale. So I don't have the controller that mounted, but this is the little controller that comes with it. It's a John Deere. Basically, there's just a forward switch and a down switch, and that's so I can control the lever that I showed you on that bar. And so when I bale, I'll show you, and it just moves it either to the left or to the right, and that's all it does. So you don't really have a monitor to watch. You just have to use this and pay attention to what's going on in the back, or listen to that alarm. So we'll see if that alarm works for us today. But this controller is what we're going to be using. And there's also a special plug for the John Deere baler, and what that plug is right here. It has this little connection. So John Deere does sell the kit that you can just plug it to a battery, and I have that, but my Kubota actually came with this plug, so that was kind of a good thing, and that's why I really enjoy running the Kubota, because I don't have to screw around with the plug. But if you got a certain tractor that you're going to set up for baling, you know, make sure that you get a plug like this, because it makes a big difference. And, you know, put it in the tractor you want. And that's why I kind of have one. I can just plug it to a battery, run it through a cab window, and I can use this on basically any tractor that I have. All right, we'll have the cab window open so you probably can hear a little better. It's a pretty quiet machine, and you can watch the levelers, and I'm on a thin row right now. It's a very quiet baler. That's the one thing I do like about it. It's not rattly, and because it's a belt, you know, we made a few bales already here, probably like 7 bales total. Got a few more over in there done. So you can see my speed, 4.4 miles an hour. I'm at about 2000 RPMs. You can see we're starting to build up back here where I'm going to actually have to string. I'm going to shoot down this row. You know, the one thing is, what's nice about round balers, they're made to eat more hay, so the bigger you can make your rows, the better off it is, and then they're going to be more uniform in size. So you see we're getting close to that black mark. The alarm just came on. Just for this purpose, I'm going to start moving that bottom lever until it catches. And now it's caught, so we're going to stop, and I'm going to move that lever all the way across that black line. I'm going to move it back. And I'm doing this manually with the controller. And when I get right to that black line, I'm going to stop about 5 seconds. Then I'm going to continue, and the whole thing will stop. Once that stops, just going to lift the door open, and out pops a bale. And how do I know the bale's out? I can look between the belts and see it fell out. Then I'm just going to shut it back down. And off we go to another one. Now, What I did learn is you don't pop the clutch on this. You're better to go slow and start eating, then you can let off. Because if you run too fast, you'll plug up. And that's what we don't want to do, is plug up. So that's just a good example of how we bale. It's kind of hard to do by myself. At least I give you a little visual of how it's done. But you know, it's very consistent. There's really no change in your speed. Everything stays as it should be. Just again, you got to pay attention to the bale size. Now I'll show you real quick how this thing looks when it opens up, rolls out. Here's a quick example of a 4x4 bale made by that baler. It's really tight all the way down. You know, you can see it's not one of those variables where you got all soft in the center. So it's a very tight core bale, and it does a really nice job. So there's an example of one of them. So the field is done. The 447 did a pretty good job. We made about 60 round bales total in the field, and can't complain. Didn't have any breakdowns. And the worst thing that happens ever is if a string doesn't engage. A lot of times it's something simple where it just flips in the wrong position. So it's all done, and I'm pretty glad with that. So, hey, thanks for watching the video on the 447. You know, there's a lot of different versions of this unit. Obviously, this is about a 2002 model, so there's a lot of other models that have come up through the lines. But if you can find these around, they're still around. A lot of people still sell them, and a lot of them are in pretty good shape. I think the gathering wheels are really important. You know, you're only talking maybe a 48-inch span as far as the pickup teeth go. So the gathering wheels help you, especially when you have a thicker row. The other thing too is, and I wanted to recap this, is that you do want to maintain your speed about 1750 to 1900 to 2000 RPMs. That's really the ideal speed for you, and you're going to go about 4.3 to 4.5 miles an hour. That's probably a good speed to maintain. I wouldn't want to go too much faster than that. You know, and depending on how thick your rows are, and it's trial and error like it is on any other baler. The only other thing I want to re-emphasize again, and I pointed out when I was demonstrating this baler, that the most important thing to do as you're getting close to getting to the size you need at about 4x4, you're going to hit this black line. At that point, keep going and start engaging your twine to start traveling. When it gets about halfway into that bale, it's going to initiate. You're going to see both of these little plastic wheels start to spin. At that point, stop and then run this slowly down to this end and then go back. And then when you get right before the little black line, hold it for about 5 seconds. You're going to get 5 wraps, and then you cut it by going to the end. And when this stops spinning, obviously you know you cut your twine. At that standpoint, you keep the PTO running. You never turn off your PTO. You let everything run, and then all you do is open up your door, and the bale will fall out, and then as you shut, it'll engage the belts, and it'll start moving again. And the reason why I think it wants it to engage, it keeps your belts from getting pinched in the back by the door. And I saw that on some balers, that they want you to actually shut your PTO off every time you make a bale, and I would think that's going to be a big pain in the butt. So what's nice about this, you don't have to back up. You keep the PTO running. You keep your RPMs up. You really don't modify anything. All you have to do is push that clutch down and hold it and make sure you run your string. Other than that, it's a pretty easy baler. I like it. And like I said, I've done over 6,000 bales with it, and I suggest that if you ever find one of these, they're great and they're quiet. And they're definitely, mine here has been pretty much bulletproof, and it's done pretty well for me. So with that said, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.